everything that I do, I know that I carry them with me. I'm an ex-convict. I'm a former gang member. I'm all these things that I'm okay to label myself as. Like, I'm proud, honestly, of the person that I was. I now look at it in a different way. I'm proud of that person because that person was broken. That person wasn't the person you see here today. It was a broken person. That person can redeem himself. I hope that I can inspire the men in prison and they're getting out to do the same.
It really feeds my soul to be able to go back, be in spaces with community that were impacted the way I was. I feel seen too. I am in communication on a regular basis with people that I've mentored. They become family and they don't go anywhere. There's always, I'm so grateful for you. I love you. Thank you for not leaving my side. People are incredible. You know, when you show people love and invest in them, it's always returned.
True freedom begins the moment we stop resisting the path and start trusting the process. Zara, what does that mean to you?
Wow. Can you read it again? Sorry.
Sure, not a problem. Whatever comes to mind. That's what I love about quotes, because I could literally read a quote today and then tomorrow read it, and I have two different meanings. Two different meanings come from it.
Yeah.
So this one is: true freedom begins the moment we stop resisting the path and start trusting the process.
That sounds like true freedom. What comes up for me is leaving my full-time job and taking that leap of faith. So at the end of 2023, I left a job after 9 years, and but I had been working since I was 14. So what comes up is that decision to leave a career, feeling like I was still in survival, but willing to take the risk to leave because I trusted that there was more on the other side and that I was going to be okay. And I was. And so falling into that cloud of okay, of just being okay was, that's what comes up for me.
So tell me about that job and how you got into it, because that job that you did has a connection to you in your past, right?
Yes. So why I got into it, or you said, I'm sorry.
Well, what is the job? What was the job that you had for 9 years, and why did you get in? Why did you get into it and stay committed to it for so long?
Yeah. So I worked for the Anti-Recidivism Coalition, which is a reentry organization working with people getting out of prison. And my personal experience is what led me to do that work, which is growing up in the 90s in Northeast LA. Lots of friends going to prison at the time and getting crazy, lengthy sentences. My dad being incarcerated for a cumulative 20 years. My brother's still incarcerated now for the last 31 years. So those experiences, also, I was a part of the gang culture in the 90s. And so during that time, a lot of people were just getting washed up to the system. And so even though I left the area and then ended up coming back maybe 15 years later to come and get into that work, I was always, I always knew that I was going to come back to do something to help change what was going on in the streets and with the people that I grew up with, or the people that had the life that I grew up, a similar life that I did. But so I would say a lot of my own pain and suffering that came with the street life and watching people just go to prison for 300 years, 200 years, just didn't make sense to me. And I knew that I wanted to come back and just help. So fast forward to 2011, I was introduced to Scott Budnick, who founded the Anti-Recidivism Coalition. And I was already doing some work like gang intervention through my church and like at a different nonprofit with at-risk youth. But I met Scott at one of his movie premieres, and then I started going to the Capitol and doing some legislative work and working on some of the bills that have helped to change the prison system today. So I was volunteering for 2.5 years, and then I got hired to start their first housing program. So that was in 2014 when I came on board as a staff. But in that 9 years that I was there specifically, you're just really on the ground, and it's like a 24/7 thing. You're not taking breaks necessarily in this work. Because for me, there was no real separation. Like, this was a part of my life. This is my life and my calling. And so although I think it's healthy, or it would be healthy to have better boundaries, but I do now, but during that time, I just dove in, like, just gave all of me to this work, and ran a housing program, then ran a mentorship program, helped build different infrastructures of ARC and different programs, and lost a lot of people during that time. So, 9 years later, when my body is like, it's time to go, it's time to pause, it's time to stop this for now, I went into grieving. So that was 2023, August. And I feel like I'm still in that process, almost 2 years later. But the first year, I really allowed myself to journal and cry, and took a pilgrimage, 500-mile pilgrimage that I walked for 39 days. And it was really healing. A lot of people were like, "What are you doing? That's crazy. What do you mean you're going to leave the country by yourself and go walk?" Yes. I almost didn't give myself a choice. It was scary to leave, but when I got there, it was everything that I thought it would be and more. And so, yeah.
Growing up in the hood myself, like 14 years old, I became a gang member. And first thing that I learned was like, okay, this is how you carry a gun. This is how you sell drugs, like the whole life. And the people that I looked up to, I felt like they were like my family, my brothers. And even the women, in the community that were like the older, homegirls that teach me things at an early age or instill things in me to help me survive. And I didn't realize it then, but looking back, like, had I not known those things, it would have been a lot more difficult for me, and maybe I wouldn't be here. So in that culture, in that environment, some people just don't know. They're like, you're taught certain things that society would look at as bad, but in that world, you just need to know it literally to eat.
Right.
14 years old, I had to sell drugs to eat.
Yeah.
Or steal to eat. It's like that was the only options. It wasn't like anybody saying, go to school, go get a job.
Right.
At that age. And so going back to growing up in East LA, were you born and raised there? Or how did you end up in that community, and what did that community do to you or do for you, however you want to look at it, whatever perspective? Because I feel like it does something to us, but it also does something for us.
Yeah.
Right? Because some of the stuff we learned there, even today, I utilize in my life.
Right.
And so take us back there and in that world.
Yeah. So I grew up in Lincoln Heights, which is Northeast LA, and I was born in Glendale, but as early as I can remember, I was through 5 years old. I was in Alhambra, which is not far from Lincoln Heights, and then actually Highland Park, Alhambra, and then Lincoln Heights. When my parents split up through a crazy domestic violence scenario that I remember at 5 years old. And we moved in with my grandmother, who actually owned a house in Lincoln Heights, which I think was, I don't know, probably more common back then because it's way more expensive now. But yes, so that was probably the most stable time in my life, being in Lincoln Heights from 5 years old to about 15 years old. And so during that time, I was walking to school as early as preschool with my brother. He's 3 years older. And I would say our number one form of abuse was neglect. So we were on our own a lot. And so walking to elementary school all those years, and then, hitting, I would say, middle school is when all of my friends just started turning. It went from like tagging crews to now everyone's getting into different gangs. I went to El Sereno Junior High School, then I went to Nightingale, which, they're on different sides of town, but still was living in Lincoln Heights. So I had friends that, we all grew up in the same neighborhood, but they're getting into different gangs and now they're rivals. And so I remember that being really confusing to me as a kid. Like, okay, wait, now we can't get along because we went from like playing in elementary school to getting into these different gangs. But so I think I felt the pressure because those were my friends, and that was like my primary support and community. That was my family. And so I thankfully never got jumped into a gang. And I think in retrospect, a large part of that had to do with my brother, who's older, who was from Lincoln Heights, but essentially threatening everybody around me, like, you better not get her into it. And
Stay away
the
from my
neighborhood,
sister.
I'm going to like threatening people. And I remember looking back to that, like, wow, that's a blessing in disguise, because even though I still grew up in the culture and suffered a lot of turmoil as a result. But like I mentioned, the community aspect of it was something I've needed at the time. And so I would say a benefit for me was this was my family. I was 16 and pregnant, and my daughter's dad was in prison. And so his friends were taking care of me. His friends were taking me to the doctor or buying me diapers, or I remember calling them crying because she had colic, and I was like, what is happening right now? I'm like, I had just turned 17. I had her 2 weeks later, and I was freaking out as a teen mom. Like, I don't know how to care for her. And so like some of his friends were like, I'm going to bring you tea for her. And it was just like chamomile tea. And and these are gang members.
Yeah.
These are people who I felt took care of me in so many ways. And then, it came with the other side, my daughter's dad. I would hold guns for him while we were walking places. And I never really realized that it was just a part of my life. And it was scary, but it was also like just kind of normal, which is interesting, right? It was just so normalized in my mind because I grew into that, and I grew up like, okay, well, this is the next thing to do then, I guess. And I wasn't having that training at home or the examples. at home, like, this is what you're supposed to do. I mean, it was like, go to school, but
Yeah.
I never, even that, I think by like 9th grade, I was just like zero motivation for school. I went to 8 different schools in high school and got a GED. I was just, I had no motivation. And I only did it because I was like, I think it's the right thing to do. Not because I had people encouraging me to do it.
And you're already a mom.
I was a mom.
Right.
And I was like, what do I do? I have nothing to give her. It was just, I needed to figure something out.
It's pretty remarkable to hear that from you, because I truly get it that you said the homies, were looking out for you, and helping you through those times when you didn't know what to do. And that just goes to show that sometimes people look at people from like certain communities like it's just all bad. They're just like menace to society, but there's really a lot of goodness there.
Yeah.
And I learned that especially in prison, when I used to run into people who on the streets I once thought were my enemies, and I was told were my enemies, but those same guys in prison became like my closest friends at one point, and then they would feed me when I didn't have anything. And so it had me to see like the humanity in people, and just as the individual, not as just a collective, like, oh, I hate them because they're from here. I stopped looking at life like that. And so to say that, I completely get that. Like, I was one of those people, like when we had a young homegirl who was pregnant, like we all kind of rallied to help in some way, but also in this like kind of like distorted way of thinking, like you said, hold the drugs or hold the guns or whatever, or carry the gun or whatever. There was still that mindset. Right. It's like almost like this warped belief system that happens, right? Yeah. So you in that community that you grew up in, I know you've seen some horrible things. Yeah. What's one thing that you remember from a time that just never goes away? Your earliest memory of some type of violence in the community?
2 things popped up, and one of them is my second daughter's dad being jumped into the neighborhood, and that was just like so ugly. Yeah. I remember it was a traumatic experience just watching him get jumped in.
How did that work? Like, walk us through that, like the jumping in process.
So I just happened to be in the area, in my neighborhood in Lincoln Heights, and he had just gotten out of jail, I think, after a year or something, and then I remember I had met him like a year before that, and I was like, oh, that's Jimmy. And then I didn't know he was going to get jumped in, but I'm hearing from different people like, oh, they're going to jump him into the neighborhood. And I'm like, oh, okay. And he was from like Whittier or something. So it's just kind of, that was another thing that didn't happen often. Like, you didn't grow up there, but like they were all hanging out all the time. So he ended up getting in. But I don't remember how long it was, but at the time it felt like forever. It just felt like too long. They're like beating him up. He's on the ground. They're kicking him. I'm just like, they're like, it. I think they have certain rules for it, and I don't know what they are, but his face was still jacked up, and it was just really traumatic. I mean, and then, so he gets beat up by multiple people, and then he stands up and is like happy that he got into this neighborhood, and he's beat up. So it's completely just contradicting.
Why do you think that is? Like, because I get that. I remember that. Like, I was getting beat up for 4 minutes, and then like this, after you're getting beat up by 4 guys for 4 minutes, then they just embrace you, and you just like happy and you feel proud. Right. And for me, I was like, okay, getting jumped in was like a test of like how you react under something like so traumatic, right? Like, how are you going to run? Are you going to cry? Are you going to plead? All these things. It's kind of like to see if there's like almost like this early onset of that, like a weakness there. That's what I would thought it was. And so when I was able to just like fight back until I was so tired I couldn't fight anymore, and then just ball up, because you can't fight against 4 people, and then I still was able to get up, that was like a sense of pride for my young mind. Why do you think like that has to be like an initiation process in the neighborhood? What is your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's interesting. I don't think I've ever thought about this. But wow.
Welcome to the podcast. I always think, I get people to think, I always ask a question of some sort that I don't even know I'm going to ask, but ends up being one that I'm wanting to know. Because I have my own way of thinking. Because you're from there. You're from that environment. Like, what do you think that is? It's like it's insane if you think about it now. Like, I want to be a part of something. Beat me up. Beat my ass. And now I'm a part of it. Right?
You know, it's been happening as long as I can remember, right? Like the initiation process for these gangs. But all I can think of is like, I think you mentioned it, but like if you can handle getting beat up and getting into the neighborhood, then you can handle being a part of the neighborhood. So I do think that, at least, you know, in the simple form of it. But I'm sure there's a history to it, and it probably goes much deeper than like when did this all start? I'm not sure. I mean, that's it's I don't know.
So how did you like, where, I would say, meaning like, how did you find the strength? How did you find the willpower to like leave that world, right? Because it's like a, man, it sucks you in, right? Like you just feel like you said, it's family, it's normalized, it's a community. It's like, how do you escape that? That's the big question. Because what you did, so many people need to know how to do right now, right? To better their lives and to escape the violence and the destruction and all that.
That's a great question. Because it was really hard. And so my second daughter, I have 2 daughters. My second daughter's dad, Jimmy, he was like, hey, let's move to Arizona. This is before I had her. My oldest daughter was 2. And I just decided to leave with him. And I remember looking at that as an opportunity to get away from the neighborhood. And I also feel like as a female, or a girl at the time, the pressure wasn't as, even then I knew the pressure wasn't as thick as it was for boys or young men. But it was still really, I still felt like, you know, where are you going? Right? Like people are looking at you like you don't get to leave this prison. Well, how I look at it now is this outside prison, right? But so I left to Phoenix, Arizona with my daughter's dad, and I remember just saying like, oh yeah, I'm leaving the state. So no one really said anything. No one says anything. They're just kind of like, oh, okay. You know, but what I did was I was there for 2 years, and I came back, and I didn't tell anybody that I was back. I don't think I've ever shared that before. Not like openly, but here it is. So I came back, moved to Rolling Heights, and I was there for 10 years. And I just completely disconnected from most people that I knew. And so when I was in Arizona, I was coming back for funerals of my friends, like literally every other month. Like it was such a heavy time. I remember like not wanting to pick up the phone anymore from calls that were from LA, because at that time there was no cell phones. But I remember just like being just having that trauma in my body already, and just like, I don't want to hear from anybody anymore because it's going to be come back for another funeral.
Yeah.
And I came back for a couple, but I stopped coming back. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. I would literally drive by the, through Lincoln Heights on the 5 freeway, and I would just like start shaking. My body just responded to it. But
why do you think that was? Like, why do you think you know, because you left a life, and then your friends that you left behind, that they're dying, and it's due to gang violence, right? Gang stuff. And why do you think you still like felt like this hurtful feeling or this pain within that?
Yeah. Well, these people are my family, right? And I'm having to leave what I know and my comfort, and people who've helped me and have been there for me, have been confidants, have been providers. And then so now I have this child, and I'm like, how am I going to give her a different life? Like, what is the outcome going to be for her life if I stay here? And my thought was like, we're going to die together. You know, I thought like, if I stay here, we're going to die. That was my thought. And I have to leave. I have to give her. And that was my motivation for leaving the state and just going anywhere and leaving. I would have probably gone to anywhere just to get out. I didn't know how I was going to get out. Yeah. And so it was painful to leave because there was people that I loved that I was leaving. Yeah. But I knew that I had to somehow give my daughter a better life, and I was willing to do anything to make that happen. And so it was sacrificial, but it was worth it. And I had to break myself from that, the desires, go through the withdrawals of wanting to be in the neighborhood. And I did go through withdrawals. I missed it. I always wanted to go back. Yeah. I wanted to be there the first 2 years of her life. It wasn't like I had a baby and now I'm just chilling. Yeah. Like I knew that I was committed to giving her a different life from the moment that I had her. But it was still a difficult, like on the weekends, I was like, here, Grandma, can you watch her? Like, I'm going to party, right? So I was like with the homies. And so it was hard to get away from it. It was, and I thought like, I'm being responsible by like leaving her with her grandma and protecting her life, but I was still risking my own life.
Where were your parents during all of this? I mean, you're a teen mom, you're in this, you're growing up in the neighborhood, and then you make a decision to leave. Like, were your parents amongst all this?
Yeah. So my dad was absent from my life for about 18 years, and that was part of that time. And he was in and out before that. So after like 5 years old, he was just in and out. And then absent. He was
in the gang cult.
He wasn't actually, but all of his siblings were. Yeah. Yeah. So
he's basically
he was like this rocker, sex, drugs, and rock and roll dad.
Okay.
No, well, not dad, but sex, drugs, and rock and roll person. And he's always done music and lived this sex, drugs, and rock and roll life, but wasn't. And he was a heroin addict. He smoked PCP. I don't know what the actual term is for that, but
what PCP?
PCP.
Yeah, I
don't remember.
To call it Sherm.
Yeah, PCP.
Yeah, PCP was nuts. I remember smoking it very young, and they say like it makes you feel like Superman. For me, it would just like sometimes I used to feel like that when I did it, but a lot of times it was just really just to numb everything that was going on in my life. I would literally feel like I was just like just a zombie. Yeah. And but yeah, no, it was one of those drugs. It was really, really just flooding the streets,
Yeah.
within the community. So
Yeah, it was.
yeah.
I used to watch people on it. My daughter's dad, first daughter's dad.
Yeah.
But my mom, so as early as I can remember, when I was 5 and she left my dad, she was drinking herself to sleep every night. And she did that for at least until I was through my early 20s, because I wasn't living with her when she was sober ever. So she worked. She always held a job, but then she was just passed out every night, drunk. And so just completely just absent, like not emotionally there. I remember just kind of waiting for her to have a few beers and then taking off and like not just coming home whenever or the next day or whatever, days later. So that was kind of my teenage years. That's where
we had coffee about a week ago. Talked about your daughter, and I think I asked you, like, did your daughter save your life? And hearing more about your story and just understanding you more, making those decisions. I know those decisions weren't based on what was best for you. It was based on what was best for her.
Yeah.
Right. Creating a better life for her, knowing what that world brings, knowing from your own, you know, mom's struggles and parents, and you want it better for her.
Yeah.
So I know you believe that's true. And so now, like, you know, where you're at today, you know, with your daughter and everything, how's your relationship with them, and how's everything going? Where's everybody at now? How's your daughter? What is she doing? And interesting, because I know, like, that you have, like, all this life experience. You were a mother very early on. And I feel like then you went to college, right? Which we could talk about too. And then you're teaching, you know, your kids. So it's like, that's something that they just can't get on their own. Like, only you can teach them that from your experiences. And are they ever pulled back into that type of life or trouble or, you know, that environment?
Right. That's so interesting. No, thank God they never have been. But so my oldest, she's 31, and my youngest is 26. September they'll be 32 and 27. But my oldest is a mom to a 9-year-old daughter, and so I'm a grandmother. And
how does that feel?
It still feels surreal. I'm like, oh, I'm a grandmother. And
that's amazing.
And you know, I was such a young mom. She's like, you were the young mom, not me. I'm like, yeah, okay, I give you that. But so my oldest, I would say it feels like we grew up together. Emily is her name. I feel like we grew up together because I had her so young, and she was just my little roll dog, you know. Her attitude and character has always been like easygoing and like go with the flow, and like be like, let's go over here, let's go there, and she'll just ask questions later. Like, she just didn't mind. She was just so cool. But she's doing great. She's been working since really young too. She started working at 14 when we were living in Minnesota. And then she went to college, got her associates in like cybersecurity. She's a techie girl, and she's a stocks girl. So her thing is she's a sales person she's worked for different phone companies, done corporate sales, and so she's doing really well. She's I'm very thankful that she's doing well. I think that I sacrificed a lot of myself, and like I said earlier, just like broke myself down from the things that I wanted so that I could just be present with my daughters. And I was like soaking up parenting magazines just to figure out how to do this. And I was trying different things and listening to child psychologists and like doing whatever I could to figure it out. And I think a lot of it worked.
No, I love that. I was actually going to ask you that. Like, how do you, like, growing up, you didn't have role models teach you how to be amazing parent, or you really didn't have that. So how did you become that? And I was going to ask you that actually. And you said it, like, you took the time out to learn it, to read about it, to study it. And that's such a huge thing to do. When you don't know something, you have to take the initiative to do it.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's amazing that you were able to accomplish that.
Thank you. I was clinging to anybody that I would encounter also that could be any sort of role model in my life. So like when I moved to Phoenix, Emily was 2, and I remember I was waitressing, and that's when I got my first waitress job. And I met so many people, and I would hang on to the good people or the people that just wanted to invest in me a little more. And I've had mentors throughout my life that aren't necessarily all still here in my life today, but I could say that there's always been like, I've always tried to connect and stay close to those that wanted to pour into my life at all. And so I did do that. And I had people that throughout my journey have helped a little bit, and maybe not like babysat or like monetary gifts, which sometimes did happen, but like it was mostly a lot of counsel. And I would ask questions like, how do I do this? And how do I do that? Because I didn't know.
What is one of the greatest pieces of mentor advice you received in your life from somebody?
Gosh, that's a good question. Okay, the first thing that comes up, which is really interesting, this is from my mom, my sober mom. And I think she learned this through her own sober journey, or sobriety journey. But I remember just being so hard on myself and like beating myself up often, which I still struggle with sometimes because I'm like I'm a high achiever and I have high expectations of myself. But so I remember my mom saying, she sees me beating myself up about something. I don't remember what it was, but I remember she said, just do the next right thing.
So simple but profound, right?
So simple, but so deep. Yeah. And I'll never forget that. That must have been like 15, 20 years ago, longer maybe. And she was just so gentle and so like, it's okay. Just do the next right thing. And that was such a big deal for me. Yeah. So and I get to use that now with other people.
Yeah. I love that. It just takes the pressure out of trying to do so much at once or overthink or worry about what we can't control. The only thing we control is like right now, the moment. Yeah. And just do the right thing right now, right? That's like a thing you can remind yourself of every day. Yeah. And everybody can, that if you're in a bad situation, if you're in prison, if you're in the foster system, if you're in the hood, if you're wherever you're going, maybe you're successful already and financially, but you're deep down inside, you still feel like you're in a prison. Just do the next right thing right now is such a powerful piece of advice. Yeah. So you said earlier, I wanted to go back because I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about the second thing that you saw in the neighborhood that came to mind, that I would say impacted you. It was an impact event in some way, right? What was that?
Man. So it must have been 1:00 in the morning, and we're just driving down the street, me and some friends, and we see one of my friends just laying out. He had been shot, and he was just like on the side of the sidewalk. Thankfully he survived that time, but we picked him up, took him to the hospital. I just remember he was just like bleeding everywhere, and we like took him to the hospital. And it's just an image that never leaves, that I have of like pulling up and like he's just waiting there, like he's either gonna bleed out or, you know, get some help. And you know, no cell phones at that time.
Yeah.
So it just like that image stays with me, where he was just like, you know, really in pain when we like picked him up, put him in the car, and then it's just bloody everywhere. But we just drop him off at the hospital. And then at that time, I just remember no one wanted to give their real names because they don't want to be.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was like, don't take me to the hospital. I'll have somebody take out the bullet, because they don't want to get in trouble. And but that was one of the times that just an image that stays with me.
Yeah.
One of probably the first times that I saw that.
Yeah, it's seeing somebody die in front of you or witnessing that is one of the most, like, just has the most impact on a person. Like it's something really, really just deep that happens there. Like you never forget it, and you can even go through all the healing in the world, and you can heal and move on and stuff, but it's always there. It's like because you know life is so valuable, and when you see it gone, especially at a young age, it's hard to really just come to terms with that. What do you say to somebody out there who may have just witnessed something like that, whether it was a murder or a traumatic event, a young person? It's like they may hold to those, you know, those unwritten codes that we lived by to, you know, don't go to the hospital, don't give your name and all that. But what advice would you give to somebody like that to help them?
Yeah. Man, well, I would definitely say don't isolate. Don't isolate and think that you can carry something like that emotionally on your own. And I know that it could go against what we practice in that lifestyle. But I know it's difficult to get help when you are actively in that life, because of the repercussions that could come with it. But I would say there is hope and there is help. And especially now, I feel like it's easier to access help to cope with those scenarios, with trauma, period. And so I would say not to isolate, but to talk about it, or talk about it with somebody trusted.
Yeah.
If you can't just talk to a therapist. I want to say seek therapy, right? But I understand that it's not that simple. It took me many, many years to get to a therapist. And even now, that's like, I'm really selective, right? Like it has to make sense.
No, I agree completely. I've just recently, since about not even a year, like some months, I recently started to talk to somebody now, and he's like, his name is Dan. He's a spiritual coach, but like therapist, I would say, my form of therapy, what works for me. And it took me all this time to get to that point, and I had to find my person. You know, I had to have that connection.
Yeah.
And it's helped so much, and I'm documenting it, I'm posting it on my channels, the process, just to be a leading example for those that are out there that may look up to me or may look up to you. Like that's kind of like why it's so important for us to say that, talk about our struggles and traumas, and then now this is what we've done to get help. And so for me, it didn't just take a therapy right away, but it was like, okay, I'm going to start to do things like, working out is one way I dealt with a lot of stuff in prison, reading, understanding, learning myself, like what's going on, why am I feeling this?
Right.
And then eventually talking about it with the homies in my community, like, because some you'll find that you'll be able to have those discussions with. Yeah. And then you take steps toward it. Right. But the idea is that I believe that our mission here on earth while we come is to become the best versions of ourselves. That's the goal. Yeah. Right. And then that means that we have to do things sometimes like how you did, move away, right? Because you couldn't be the best version of yourself for your daughter in the neighborhood. You needed to take those steps to do that. And so if we look at that every day, what can I do to be a better version of myself? That's my main goal, because that will allow me to be better for others. Then it makes it a lot easier, gives you a path, a framework every day. Yeah. So that's why I'm big on that, and I didn't realize that till way later in life. So, but yeah, I'm so glad that you're able to speak to that, because there's a lot of young girls out there in the same situation like you had that could hear that and truly be moved by that to get help. Yeah. I want to say, I remember I have an aunt who's a therapist, and I remember she used to say, like, I think you should really go to therapy. It'll be good for you. Like, you've been through so much, and I just never connected. Like, I never connected. Like, how is it going to benefit me? And what do you mean by that? And you should do EMDR, which is specific to, trauma therapy, right? And I just didn't understand how it was going to serve me. And I wish you would have elaborated a little. I wish you would have said, like, if you cry, that'll be really healing for you. Like, if you could get to the place of you're crying even for something that happened 20 years ago, it'll release you and it'll heal you. And I've done that now, but I never realized how that could serve me and heal me today, because I just didn't believe that you could cry today for something that happened 30 years ago and heal. Yeah. But now I believe it because I've done it, and I know it's healing and it's freeing. So because you're now crying from a place of like empathy and compassion, like from a different place today than you were back then. Yeah. When I saw my friends die when I was younger, the tears were different. They were driven by then through anger and retaliation and all these other feelings that were tied into it. It wasn't like healthy healing. Yeah. Tears didn't really heal me. But now when I do and I process it differently, it's healing. So it's so true. Like, it's like now that even us, like where we're at today, like I still have significant healing to do. I don't have it all figured out. I'm still I'm about to be 4 years out of prison, 17-year prison sentence. Still trying to figure it out. Yeah. But that's the journey, right? It's like I've fallen in love with the journey of trying to become better every single day. Yeah. Trying to heal a little bit more every single day. Yeah. Yeah. And so what about you? What are some of the stuff you do now to help you along your journey where you're at today, and to heal and to be better? And, like you said, you're a high achiever, to continue to accomplish more. What are some of the things you do? So I told you I went on that 500-mile pilgrimage, right? Yeah. So. And you wrote a blog. I wrote a blog. And it'll be in the show notes, because I think everybody should read it. I read it. It's great. I love it. Oh, awesome. Yeah. It's on the Medium app. But I journaled, and that's part of what I continue to incorporate into my days, or at least a few times a week. I'll journal and just free write. Just write whatever is on my mind and on my heart. I try to do it when I wake up in the morning, first thing. That way, it's just, not putting any rules on it, right? Just like write whatever comes to mind. And that is, it's therapeutic. That's one of the things I do. I also
I walk still. So after that 2-month pilgrimage, or not 2-month pilgrimage, I walked for 39 days, but I was out there for 2 months in Europe. And when I came back, I just continued to walk. So I'm walking at least a couple hours a day. And
Nice.
that's part of what keeps me grounded and keeps me just, it allows me to continue that reflection time, prayer time. I stay in community. Community is a really big deal. Having trusted people in my life has been life-saving. So I have those few people that I talk to on a regular basis, but then I go to church weekly because that helps me to stay grounded. And I'm also, I go to the Prison Way, which is another reentry organization. And I'm there on Tuesdays because they have a post-incarceration group for system-impacted people. Most people are formerly incarcerated there, but I show up because it's my community. It's where I feel I get to sort of heal that teenage girl a little bit too, where it's like I get to full circle people that have gone through a lot of what I've gone through, except many of them did lengthy sentences like you did. And so now I'm in community with them like weekly, and we get to talk about anything and everything. Have a very raw space and that's a space where I can talk about anything, where I'm not going to feel like it's going to be reported or like something that happened 30 years ago that's going to be reported. But that's a safe space for me. So finding the safe spaces is important to me. My community, journaling, exercising, praying. Those are all things I have to do regularly to stay sane, to stay grounded.
And just like circling all it back together, you worked for the Anti-Recidivism Coalition for 9 years. You left and you still continued the work in like reentry. And then like you say, in your community. And I understand how important that is because I do it. Like for me, like every time I go into the prison and I'm in there and the guys always say, man, like, thank you. They're so appreciative. And I'm like, no, like this helps me more than you. Like, like you all inspire me so much and remind me just to be more grateful. And it's like starting over again when I walk out of that prison on my, you know, my own free will, right? It's like, it's like a reset for me. So, and just really feeling like I have meaning in life because everything that I do, I know that I carry them with me. Like I'm an ex-convict, I'm a former gang member. I'm all these things that that I'm okay to label myself as. Like, I'm proud, honestly, of the person that I was because I now look at it in a different way. I'm proud of that person because that person was broken. That person wasn't the person you see here today. It was a broken person. But I healed, you know, I've worked on myself enough to where now I can say that like that person can redeem himself. You know, could live a life of amends. And I hope that I can inspire the men in prison and they're getting out to do the same. That's the mission. And so for you, the work you do in the reentry, and I know that's like it's like you're so passionate about like what does it do for you, and like what is some of the feedback you've got from others that you've impacted?
What definitely feeds my soul, like to do this work. I also go into the prisons with Inside Out Writers to teach creative writing, and that gives me like a real freedom to journal about whatever or not journal, but like write about whatever comes up, talk about whatever comes up. So when my grandma passed away, I was like, I'm coming in, I'm like, let's talk about grief. And so, you know, we're writing about grief. And so, but that, so like it really feeds my soul to be able to go back or to go in or to be in spaces with community that were impacted the way I was. But I feel seen too, right? I feel seen for all of the things that I've experienced in life. And I don't have to explain a whole lot. I'm not like on a panel somewhere where I have to explain to people that didn't live what I lived. So I feel really connected to in spaces, in reentry spaces. What was the other question? I'm sorry.
And what were some of the like moments, I would say, or feedback that others have given you for what, like how you've inspired them, or something that you've said through your work? And I mean, just treating them with compassion is a huge thing. Like, what are some of the that you received? I think it's important to acknowledge these, by the way, because if you're anything like me, I don't really acknowledge myself much. I don't like pat myself on the back for wins. I'm always just trying to do more. And so I think it's important that we do, because we've came a long way, and it's important to acknowledge that, even if it's just for a second.
Yeah, that is hard for me. I am in communication on a regular basis with people that I've mentored. They become family and they don't go anywhere. They're my people, whether they call me big sister or mom or, it's, spoke to one yesterday that has been in my life for at least 10 years, and I've been on the journey with him. But it's so beautiful to be in a season of reaping what I've sowed in this work. So 10 years later, having been in a relationship with so many people, there's always, I'm so grateful for you. I love you. Thank you for not leaving my side. And, but also in my stepping away from the work and needing space, I feel like they've extended so much grace and have truly been like family, because they're like, there's a fear of like, oh, I'm leaving people because I need to be by myself right now, because I did that for almost a year. But no one has gone anywhere. People are like, are you ready? Can I take you to lunch? Can I buy you dinner? Can I honor you for all the time that you've invested in me? And it's just, wow. Like after leaving ARC and taking a break and coming back, and I feel like people have been waiting patiently for me to honor me, to simple things, just come and like take me to breakfast, and they're so happy to do it, and it makes me emotional, because people are incredible. When you show people love and invest in them, and it's like, it's always returned. And even if somebody goes to prison, which I have mentees that are in prison right now, have gone back to, but I'm like, hey, I can't talk to you on the phone every day because it's breaking my heart that you're back in there. But it doesn't mean I'm here, right? I'm here, and I can talk to you when I can talk to you once in a while. And it's just never any love lost. And I'm so blessed by so many people that on a regular basis come to me and tell me what I've meant to them over the years, or thank me for what I've done. And sometimes I meet people that said, you helped me when I needed it the most. And this happened to me a couple months ago with this woman. And I went to this event, and I didn't know her or remember her, but she goes, when I got out of prison, you like jumped through hoops to get me these COVID relief funds. And I just want to say thank you. And she hugged me, and I was like, wow, like I don't remember that. And you're just helping as many people as you can, so it's just,
you're the hero in the world, the heroes that I speak on, not the one that wears the cape, or the one that, the kids look at heroes. It's you doing the work, helping people from like an authentic place every day. Like you said, just doing the right thing. That's what the real hero is.
Yeah.
And so, one last thing before we end, to the lifer in prison, and one person might have just came in your mind, right? I know whenever I think of the lifers, I always think of particular people. To the lifer in prison right now that will hear this, because this podcast will be in the prisons to hundreds of thousands of people around the nation will hear this. And I've gotten so many messages from people that have heard my interviews on my other friends' podcasts that are in prison, talking about that episode helped me get through this, or that episode helped. So somebody will hear this message.
Yeah.
What is your message to that person, that lifer right now that will hear your voice? What was your message to them?
Oh, man.
And
no pressure.
to the camera over there. No pressure.
Wow. Of course, I think of my brother because he's been inside for 31 years. And if I could say anything, not just to the lifer, but to the long-termer, or to anyone who's listening, do the work, do the internal work so that you could be the best version of yourself and for others, for your family. Man, if you're not in communication with your family, get to know your family if you could. Call home and ask them how they're doing. Don't just ask for what you need. I know it's difficult, and you're doing your time, but we're doing time with you as family members. So that's a real thing. It took me a long time to get to a place of actually crying for my brother who was inside. It took me maybe 15 years to say, oh, shoot, this really impacted me. And so I just want to say, do the work and don't waver. You don't know when your time is going to come, but yeah, but I'm praying for you.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you.